everyone, and welcome to Positive by Design. Good people talking about real shit and easy to implement success methods. Hosted by Social Jane Media, brought to you by yours truly, Sarah Glenn. I am the creator and CEO of Social Jane Media, a certified social media marketing expert and the branding specialist that many entrepreneurs turn to. If you're looking for inspiration from other entrepreneurs and high-vibing humans, you're in the right place. So settle in, get comfy, and let's get started. In today's episode, we are talking with Patricia Diudon. She helps entrepreneurs manifest and monetize their true passion and purpose through human design, turning their ideas into successful and profitable businesses. This is exciting, like right off the bat. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining. Could you get us started by just sharing a little bit about yourself, maybe before you sort of discovered human design and like what brought you into that line of work?
Okay, sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm also very excited. So I love this. And so basically, my background came from real estate. That's what I did after college. It was one of those things where, I don't know, I just couldn't find like the job that I really liked. And then I realized, you know what? I just like working for myself. So I was doing real estate, and then so I did that for a while. And then basically I had a few health issues, and while I was going through those, basically I kind of realized like, well, what do I really want to do? I mean, do I really want to continue selling homes forever? You know, what do I want to do? And what is really the bigger picture? What is really the bigger purpose? And so I was actually already coaching realtors at that time, but I realized they were just not, I just did not want to coach realtors. I just felt, okay, it's kind of, I just wanted something else, something a little bit deeper, something more meaningful, I feel like. And so I started, diving into different things. I was always very spiritual and religious and all this stuff. So it was kind of, I learned numerology, I learned different things. And I stumbled upon human design, and it was actually during the pandemic. I don't know if, I guess maybe, I don't know if that's still in use, but whenever Clubhouse kind of started happening, I guess, everybody was at home talking.
Yeah.
That's actually when I learned about human design. And I was fascinated by it because I felt like that is kind of pulling all the pieces together and really learning kind of really the inside you, the deep, like really yourself. It's not like, astrology where it's very like general, where it's very, oh, okay, let's say you're a Leo, this is kind of this, or you're like, whatever it is, a Virgo, and then I felt, astrology I felt was a little bit, it's very broad. Obviously there's different things to it, but I just really, because human design is really based on you, right? It's really based on you and nothing else. So
Yeah, that's super interesting. And, I think the pandemic actually brought quite a lot of opportunity to people that have sort of that perspective of like, okay, this is something that is happening to not just me, but the entire world. What am I going to do to get through it? Right? Am I going to just sit back and like see what happens? Or am I going to move forward and start creating a life that's like, it's unfolding right in front of you, and there's opportunity everywhere, no matter circumstance, So I love that you saw something and you went for it. And I agree with you with like human design stuff, which I'm not super familiar with it. So you're going to be schooling us today a little bit on that. But from what I have learned about it, last year, I'm like timelines. I don't even know. Ever since I started entrepreneurship, it's like I'm hyper speed, and it's like 7 years of stuff has happened in 1 year. So, timelines, I'm like, when did this happen? But I remember I was at a conference and someone was talking about human design, and I was just like, I was enthralled with what she was saying. It was just so interesting. And I knew that I'm like, I need to know more about this. This is super, because like you say with astrology, some people are just drawn to that type of information.
Yeah.
Like, what can this tell me? And that's a big message that I have in a lot of my trainings and coaching programs is we're always seeking outside of ourselves for answers.
Yes.
But the real answers actually live inside of us. And
Yes.
so, like, let's turn inward and let's start asking those questions. So that's
Yeah.
what you do. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, for those of us like me who are like, okay, what's human design? This sounds interesting. Can you break down for us, like, what is human design?
Okay. Yeah. So human design is basically a combination of, like you said, astrology, spirituality, because it combines basically the day that you were born with the time you were born and the place where you were born. So it's sort of kind of like a birth chart. I don't know if you've, some people might be familiar with birth charts, but it really combines, there's also really science behind it. There is it combines like the Rave Mandala, with the I Ching. It combines all those different things, and it was actually created by. Well, he goes by Ra Uru, and basically he's the one that created it, the human design system. So again, and it's basically because, like you said, astrology is okay. It's very, I feel, general, right? Okay, so if you were born, let's say in the month of June, right, from let's say or whatever, mid-May to mid-June, you fall into like a Gemini, right? Then you're kind of like a Cancer, you're a Taurus, or whatever it is. But so this is really basically, like you said, it's based on you because it pulls all those elements together and it creates this chart of, okay, the time that you were born, and it actually goes back 90 days on the time of your basically what they believe is the time of the conception of your human design, your personality, right? So it actually goes on that. And so it's really specifically based on you because it says, okay, that's when you were basically designed. This is kind of like your traits, this is how you act or how you are. And obviously, of course, you don't want to kind of box everything in like, oh, this is how you have to be because that's what your human design says. But it is pretty accurate if you know yourself when you actually read a chart and you're like, wow, I've been doing this all my life and now I understand why. It's more sort of like you said, it really kind of helps us see things that sometimes maybe it's like, oh, like, well, maybe you're just a little bit too outspoken or maybe you're like this, but then it's like, well, no, because I'm here to give a message, for example, right? So maybe
Right.
that's why I'm outspoken, right? But society or conditioning sometimes it's like, no, like, okay, we don't say this, we don't do this. But some people are just meant, based on their design, to be disruptors, to be innovators, to be different things. And obviously everybody has a role in the concept of human design, which is really so great because I love it that basically because everybody has to work together. It's not that like, oh, okay, this human design is, let's say, superior or whatnot. That doesn't work like that because everybody, they're all meant to function together because when they all function together, that's when basically you have like the harmony.
What a great point to make. Like, not just with human design, but as like humanity as a whole. We are not meant to be the same.
Yeah.
We actually function and harmonize better when we recognize the differences and use them as strengths.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
mic drop. Holy moly. That's exactly what it is. It's really honing in. And I understand that a lot of people listening to this may be like, yeah, but I mean, when you're raised in a small town and there's, small mentalities and you're an outspoken person or, anything like that, yeah, it can be really easy to feel under someone's thumb, I guess, I don't know the best way to put it, but it can be easy to feel out of place.
Yeah.
Based on where you grew up or the family that you're in. But I think, a lot of my messaging, and I know from what I've worked with Patricia doing, a lot of her messaging is really, it's not about, being that disruptor, but it's about really owning that unique side of you because it's all part of the machine. It's all part of what harmonizes you, me, us, all of it. Yeah, that's just so cool. So when we use human design to then start a business or, revitalize or grow a business, what role does it really play in doing that?
Well, That's a great question, and actually, it's a really good well, it's a good question in the fact that because once you understand your human design, you kind of know what your strengths are, which we kind of know, but sometimes, you know what it is? Sometimes I feel like we're scared of actually like, oh, I'm really good at that, but I don't know. It's because it's out of our comfort zone, right? So it's like we
We're
feel,
afraid to own it. Yeah.
yes, it's like I said, we're afraid to being really basically be our authentic us because we a lot of times we seek that approval from others, right? Because when we're kids, we seek the approval from our parents, and then when we're older or when we're in school, right, we seek the approval of teachers, like, oh, you got an A, well, that's great, right? So so it's always that thing. So like I said, once it comes to entrepreneurship or having a business, sometimes we're seeking the approval of, okay, well, can I really do this, or am I really capable? And so I love really human design with the fact that, because when you kind of look at it and when you kind of look at yourself, you're like, wow, okay, maybe you're an amazing communicator, or you really have that vision, right? And then you can kind of work with that, because then okay, I'm a good communicator, so I'll be able to really get the message out. But maybe I'm not that great in organization. So then okay, if I'm gonna start a business, okay, I might be able, maybe I'm the creative one that has the message, but okay, I'll need like an assistant to really help me kind of organize, or maybe kind of keep me on the ball. And so I'm not just, all over the place, because it's a great tool to really use. I feel like that, because then again, you're only doing your strengths, because if you basically really, again, you're a great communicator, but then you're the one that's actually doing Excel sheets and trying to organize everything and doing like, P&L reports or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, frustrating. I hate business. I don't want to do business. Sometimes, we get that kind of bad taste in our mouth, because they're like, oh no, entrepreneurship is horrible. Nobody should ever do that. But it's because, again, we're in the wrong role. And that's why I like human design, because you can actually put the right person in the right role. It's not like, when you interview somebody and you give them, let's say, a personality test, and they're like, oh, okay, they know how to do Excel. But obviously, I mean, a lot of us know how to do Excel to some point, but that doesn't mean that we're all accountants.
Doesn't mean we love it.
Exactly. Like, I mean, everybody can Google, like, okay, what's the formula for whatever, right?
Yeah.
But again, there's people that really are passionate about it. And then there's other people that just would rather,
Mhm.
go dig
Yeah.
holes outside, So it's like,
Yeah.
so that's the beauty of it, right? Because understanding yourself, okay, no, this is what I'm good at, and I need help with this. And then you have somebody, then you can hire people or bring in people that will actually hold you accountable. And that's how everybody kind of grows.
Yeah, that's such a good point to make. And I think that that's actually something that a lot of entrepreneurs that are stepping into that CEO mindset, that's the big difference maker that I've started to recognize, is when an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur and they are doing absolutely every single job and they're being stretched thin and they're feeling burnt out. And then you see an entrepreneur who has stepped into that CEO role and has started to delegate things that they know are not for them. Let's start delegating roles that just don't bring me joy. Yeah, it might mean that there's a little bit of output of, financial stuff, or a little bit of energy because you have to train somebody. But what are you getting in return? You know what I mean? Like, what is that 10x value you're getting by not having to do the thing that you hate to do? And I'm personally, that's where I'm at in my own personal journey right now, is I am at that level where I'm starting to really think as that CEO and starting to really identify what parts of my business I absolutely love and what parts I'm like, I think maybe I could start looking to outsource, looking to delegate, because for so long, and I think, I'm not the only one who does this, we like to just have control over all aspects.
Yeah.
And we think that that makes us better business owners.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like you just said, and it has been proven that if you are not operating in your own zone of genius, I mean, you're wasting your energy in all these other places.
Yeah. which leads them to burnout, and then you stress out because, and then you're like, oh my god, this business doesn't work, I don't like this, because then you just burn out. And it has nothing to do really with the business. It's like you said, it's just really you're not doing the things that you're really great at. You're doing everything, and that's
Mhm.
what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you made a really good point too about like the stopping the approval seeking.
Hmm.
And I think that, doing something like human design, working with someone like you, where you can just clearly have that chart, have that result of, okay, these are the strengths I have. And you can sort of innately know, like when you're reading that chart, you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who has read a
Yeah.
horoscope and been like, shit,
Yeah.
that's me.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like the human design charts, like they dive even deeper. So
Yeah.
if you've ever read a horoscope and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is me, human design is that like times 10
Yeah.
is what it kind of seems like. And
Yeah.
so I just, the possibilities of where you can go with your own self-confidence, where you can go with your business models, the ideas you have for business, once you know these things about you and you're like, okay, let me own these strengths of mine, then yeah, you stop approval seeking for all the people and things that just don't serve you
Yeah.
anymore. And it's wild to me how long and how, like, just how many hours and years and decades we spend seeking approval from other people.
Yeah.
It
No.
blows my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's true, and it's funny because and you know what the beauty of it is also, because once you understand yourself, like you said, also if you're bringing in individuals or partners or whatnot, it's also great to understand what their human design is, right? Because once you understand their human design, you actually know how to work together. Because it's funny because like when my clients come to me, they're like, oh, like this and that, and sometimes I'm like, well, because you guys are both the same type, and then the thing is, one throws fire, the other throws the gasoline at it, you know what I mean? So instead of
Yeah.
so it's kind of learning how to, like, okay, not throw fire when the other person throws fire. And I know it's hard, but it's really like learning. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, that's true, because when they get heated, I get heated, and then we're like, just it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
have an explosion, and then both parties are like, this is horrible, this is like the worst thing ever. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it really,
Mhm.
just self-awareness in general is such a superpower. I mean, I've said this a lot recently in
Mhm.
my content. I said it in a
Yeah.
podcast episode recently. Like, self-awareness is a freaking superpower. And becoming self-aware of what your human design is and how you react to things, the
Mhm.
things that you love, the things that you hate, the things that you're good at. Like, it's insane how well you can live your life without hitting all of those, potholes along the
Mhm.
way, when you start to know and recognize and completely own those parts of you, like the good and the bad.
Yeah.
We're not all light.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we've
No.
got plenty of shadow, and
Yeah.
own both sides of it. um, so I want to say that I think whenever I did a quick little human design chart thing. The
Okay.
one thing I wasn't absolutely certain of was the time of day that I was born.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know if it's like 100% accurate for me, but the result was that I am a manifesting generator, I think is what it was.
Yes.
So can you actually like run through what some of these mean? Like
Yeah.
some of these results that we get?
Yeah, sure. So basically, there's the five types, right? So there's the manifester, the manifesting generator, the projector, and the reflector. I like to give kind of like the orchestra analogy, because it just makes sense, like, for everybody. So basically, the manifesting generator is kind of like a subcategory of of the generator, right? Basically, because they act like 20% a manifester and 80% as a generator. So basically, both things kind of apply to them. But so when you have a concert, let's say a concert, right? So the manifester is a person that has the vision. They're the ones that say, you know what, I want to have a concert at Carnegie Hall, right? So they have the visions, but they need the generators to actually execute it, because they don't have They don't have that. The generators are, as I always say, it's kind of like, it is like a really like a generator. It's like, you know, you plug it into the wall and they work until they either run out of gas or until you unplug them, right? So basically, it's like they have all the components of doing actually the work and putting everything together, right? So again, the manifestors are visionary. They're the ones that have the ideas. Then the generator is basically the orchestra, is all the players in the orchestra. Those are the generators. Then the projector is the director, right? The maestro, the one that tells the players how to play so that there's a beautiful symphony. Or you'll have, you know, what I always say, like when my kids started playing, and then it's like you hear the because, you know, everybody's not playing synchronized. So the projector is the one that basically tells everybody, they guide them into, okay, you play, now you play, to create the music. And then the reflectors is the audience. They're the ones that basically are sitting back and they're just listening to the beautiful music, and they're kind of just taking everything in, and they're just really observing everything and just kind of, you know, reflecting that energy back. And the beautiful thing about this is, again, as I said, everybody has their role, right? Because without the visionary, you can have a concert. Without the players, you can have a concert. Without the director telling you what to do, you can have a concert either. And without the audience, you just play for yourself, right? And everybody plays a big part. And just to kind of, you know, go over like what you were saying, your manifesting generator, again, you know, you kind of have the both things, right? You have like the ideas, but then you also have the execution part. So it's just really learning, you know, okay, which ideas, because as manifestors, I mean, you'll have like, I have a manifestor at home. I mean, mine is still little, but I mean, he has ideas every 5 minutes. Oh, can we go to Kenya? Oh, what about if we go to California? I go see it. Like, it's like literally within like one day. I mean, we can go around the whole world, and then, you know, let's go do this. Like, it's just the ideas, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but then, you know, you have to kind of learn what are the right ideas, and what are kind of like, maybe not that they're wrong ideas, but maybe not at this time, right? Maybe they kind of pushed off a little bit. And you know, and as the generator, you know, you have that execution style. So basically you're like, okay, great, I have this idea, and then, okay, let me go do it. You know, let's say I want to create a podcast. Okay, let me figure it out, and let me start doing it, and let me start working, right? So it's kind of like you're doing both. You have the idea, and then you're actually doing it to create it.
Well, and I do think that I probably overuse the generator side of me a little too much sometimes, and I start to recognize that when I start feeling a little burnt out. I mean, I love your analogy of like the generator is like the generator.
Well,
it keeps working until it runs out of gas.
It's the manifestor, because the manifestor doesn't have that much energy. The generator you can really go, but see, that the whole thing is about, like I said, learning what is the right idea, right? Because again, you might be like, oh, you know what, I need to start a podcast, and I want to do a blog, and I don't want to do this, I want to do that. And all of a sudden, okay, you're running like 100 miles an hour because you're the generator, so you have the energy, you can do all of it. But then you're like, well, you know, at one point you're like, hold on, like, why am I doing all this stuff, right? Like, you know, why not, you know, maybe this is not the right time for me to do this, right? You know, so it's just that whole thing of really like kind of really realizing what is the right idea. And then it comes, you know, with the, what is it called, with the strategy. That's why the strategy of in human design is so important, because you have to know basically what to respond to, right? Because as a manifesting generator, you respond, but the whole thing is about, okay, well, what do you really respond to? And like, am I responding to the right opportunity, or am I responding to all of the opportunities, right?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely catch myself responding to everything. I'm like, ooh, 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 ooh. And I'm taking in all the ideas. And yeah, I'll find myself being stretched too thin, going, whoa, I need to like pull back a little bit. And I've done that actually recently with some of my content for a couple, like 3 months or so. I'm like, okay, I'm going to post here, you know, like all the places. I'm going to post all the places, and I'm going to repurpose all the stuff. And I'm just like working smarter, not harder. Yes, for a while. But after a couple months of doing that, I'm like, I'm feeling a little burnt out on this. And like, what is actually working? And am I just doing this because I had the idea to do it? So I was like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
But is it even working? You know, so I think it's really important to always be reevaluating, like you say, having that strategy piece in place. and being okay with pivoting and making a change and, adjusting all
Mhm.
the things. So this kind of leads me to my last question I wanted to ask. If someone is feeling a little confused about the direction of their life or
Mhm.
maybe like the direction of their business,
Mhm.
because we deal with a lot of entrepreneurs that are kind of constantly in like, "Well, I'm pivoting. Oh, I'm pivoting again. Oh, I'm pivoting again," because they can't decide, they can't
Yeah.
land on something that feels aligned to them. So how does human design kind of help guide in that decision, whenever they're feeling sort of misaligned and
It,
confused?
yeah, so that's a great question because that happens all the time, and I deal all the time with clients. Be like, oh, I doing like I said, like this, that, and I always say, like, first thing is always to pause, right? It's like first you always kind of want to pause. Okay, if the opportunity comes to you, right? You pause and you're like, okay, yes, I want to do it, but like, okay, is it the right thing right now? Because if I tell you, hey, Sarah, you know what? Let's go to Paris tomorrow, right? You'd be like, oh my God, that's been on my bucket list forever. But you're like, yes, let's go. But then it's like, well, and then while we're going to the airport, you're like, hold on, why am I going to Paris? Like it's like it's been on my bucket list, but then I'm like, why am I going now? Like I can't go there. So it's just really like you said, like recognize, okay, what is the right opportunity for me at this moment, right? Doesn't mean that okay, we're saying no to everything, and it's really learning that. But in human design, we also have it's not only like okay, this is your type, because there's also the different gates and the gates really hold a lot of basically missing pieces where you can really dive into that, and the centers, right? The defined centers. Again, like when I said in the beginning, okay, maybe is your throat center defined? Okay, are you a great communicator? Is your intuition defined? Maybe you just know because you're intuitive. So it's kind of like leaning on those things, and then really also looking at the gates, because the gates kind of give you an overview. I mean, there's 64 gates, so it's a lot of them, but it's kind of, learning with, okay, well, this is the gate of, let's say, leadership, right? Maybe you might not be a business owner, but then you're like, well, where am I really, like, where am I the leader, right?
Mhm.
Like, am I leading, like, maybe it's just my household, but you know what I mean? So it's like, so it's really like kind of, using those gates to kind of really help us really pinpoint, okay, this is basically what, let's say, based on human design, it really says this is your strengths. Can you recognize that someplace in your business or in your daily life? And if you can, great, then maybe let's amplify it. And if not, well, okay, well, then kind of it's like, okay, become aware of it. And then if you are, then let's amplify it, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot of that, working to really find those strengths within basically the whole chart, because there's so many different things. I mean, there's channels, there's different things. So there's a lot of different things that we can look at. It's not only like, oh, okay, I'm a manifestor, I'm gonna have like a million ideas. Well, that's great, but what kind of ideas, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it has to be some sort of thing, right? Like
Right.
in Stanford, do you like, maybe do you like volunteering? Do you really like to work with groups of people? Do you like to work with individuals? Do you like to work with businesses, right? Do you like to work with kids? So a lot of that information is really found kind of in the depths of the human design chart.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that's exactly the answers that everybody is always seeking.
Yeah.
It's so true. People are like, okay, I want to know this thing about myself. Okay, now I found this out. Now, how do I apply it to life and business? And that's exactly what you do. And I absolutely love that. This has been a really fun episode. And
Yes.
y'all head over to the show notes because Patricia is actually going to be offering a free human design chart, some abundance affirmations, and like a lot more resources to you guys. I'll have the link in the show notes for you to access her. And at the time of this recording, I don't know if she's going to be doing any special pricing on her human design readings because I know earlier in the summer she was. So be sure to reach out to her and get your human design chart. Like, start figuring this stuff out and see if it resonates with you. What else do you have to share with us before we sign off for today?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So yes, definitely. Yes. If anybody, from the show wants a human design reading, please, reach out to me and I'll give your listeners like a 50% discount. So that's going to be
Ooh.
awesome. And also one other thing which I'm running actually is I'm doing a masterclass which is called Visionary Vibes, and it's basically your goals by design. So that's where we start diving a little bit into human design and kind of how you can align your life and your business by human design. And basically that's going to be a 3-day masterclass. We're actually starting tomorrow, so if anybody wants to sign up, I guess I don't know if you're gonna have I guess DM me, or I don't know how you're gonna have the links or whatnot. I can send you the link too. And yeah, so that's gonna be an amazing way of kind of just to, like I said, get to know yourself and kind of get your feet wet and kind of see where can I start applying that and how can I become more aware of it in my life and in my business.
Oh, I love that. And if anybody misses that masterclass, because obviously the time of this recording and the time that it airs is a little bit different.
Yes.
And so if anybody misses it, do you have your master classes? Do they live inside of a Facebook group or?
Yeah, I have it inside a platform, so they can basically, sign up for it and they'll have that. And this is something basically that I do twice a year. So basically, so there's gonna be, in a few months we'll do it again. Yeah, because I do basically like every 6 months.
Perfect.
It's that particular one.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Oh, I love that. All right, you guys, this was really fantastic. Patricia, thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks. Bye-bye.
That was so much fun. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you want to get a shout out or maybe even inspire a fellow entrepreneur, go ahead and take a screenshot of yourself listening to this episode and tag us in your stories at Social Jane Media. Positive by Design is brought to you by Sarah Glenn, CEO of Social Jane Media, the branding and business coaching agency that teaches you how to discover your authentic brand, lead with value, and build the business you desire. If you're ready for more, head over to the Social Jane community. Link is in the show notes. I'll see you inside.